Peace, 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 family. My name is Michael Jordan, aka the Sirius Alchemist. And as y'all know, I'm serious about my shit. So welcome back to another Saturday book review. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in. And if you're new, welcome. And if you're returning, what's up, family? Appreciate y'all tuning in to what I got going on. So in today's video, this is going to be a part two of last week's video. Is God the devil? You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing a part two to that. So I'm gonna start out with this book right here, family. The Gnosis. Like I said in the last video, the Gnosis means the genes of Isis. If you look at the word, the Gnosis, it's the genes of Isis. That's where your Genesis comes from. So basically, in the last video, I was just basically saying that Christianity is a stolen religion. You know what I'm saying? It goes like, have you ever seen, you ever seen a movie where somebody stole somebody's stuff and then they killed them and then they claimed it as their own stuff and they changed it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and claimed it for their own. Well, that's what happened with Christianity, family. It's a stolen religion. It belongs to it was created by a race of black people, right? But it was carved up. It was carved up, like I said in the last video, it was carved up real heavy. It's been carved up real heavy. But these books is going to show you why the God of this world is the devil, right? And in the ancient text, he's known as Ialdabaoth, right? So this Ialdabaoth, he sits over religion, right? Anytime you got the worship and praise, that's the devil, right? Because the true religion is about going inside and realizing that you God and you becoming God. You know what I'm saying? Not this other stuff they trying to push, this historical stuff. So I'm gonna start off with this book, The Gnosis, or Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures by William Kingsland. And I'm gonna read this part again in the back because I think it's very important to set the tone for the video. It says this book is of extraordinary value in unearthing the real Christian message, as understood by the gospel writers, at a time before the church was turned into an organ of state. The author demonstrates that the scriptures are not always to be taken literally as biographies of the life of Christ, but they also contain allegorical and symbolical levels of meaning as well. The figure of Christ that emerges is not so much one of a suffering Savior pouring out his lifeblood for the redemption of the world, but rather of a guide to the essential gnosis that the kingdom of heaven lies within. It becomes clear that the teachings of Christ have far more in common with those of such other great world teachers as the Buddha, Krishna, Hermes Trismegistus, and Zoroaster than is generally supposed by most practicing Christians. Unlike many other books on the subject of Christian scripture, which often present a superficial view of Christianity, the gnosis or ancient wisdom in the Christian scriptures is reasoned, logical, and intellectually refreshing. Family, this book is a gem. If you don't have it, get it. I'm telling you, this book is a must-have in your library if you want to understand this stuff. So again, the Gnosis or Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures by William Kingsland. So I'm gonna start out and read from page 57. And I think, this is real important to understand that the God of this world is the devil. Because, like I said in the story, if you understand the myth, it goes that, the great mother was pregnant with a child, right? And this child was still unformed in her womb when it tore out the side and went to a remote part of the universe and created its own universe and created 7 planets in that universe, which is the universe in which we live. And I had a chart that I showed in last week's video. I think I got it around here somewhere. I'm gonna show it again for y'all real quick so I could kind of set the tone for the video. I can find what I did with that image. Um, Here it is. Got it. So this Ialdabaoth, when he created this solar system, he created seven planets or seven planet. He created seven planetary archons, right? Seven planetary evil archons, right? And here they are, right here. These planets. This is the tree of life, by the way, family. So if you're not familiar with this diagram, then you have to forgive me because you have to pretty much be familiar with this diagram to understand where I'm going. But anyway, he created these seven planets: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and all that, right? But remember, he was blind, ignorant, and arrogant, right? He recognized that he wasn't the only God. Remember in the Bible, in your Bible, he says, "I'm a jealous God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me," but he ain't realized there was gods above him because he couldn't create this realm up here, the higher realms. He could only create down here. He created these seven planets down here, right? So, like I said, in 1945, when they dug up these texts and come around Egypt, that's when the white man realized the God of this world was on his side, right? When I told you the story that the great Sophia had tricked Ialdabaoth and the seven archons into having him to create a human being, right? So when he created a human, and she was telling him, create a human, and that way you have somebody to rule over. You know what I'm saying? Then you can just give them a little bit of your light, because the seven planetary archons, he didn't give them no light, right? So because you can create planets, like we could create planets just based on thought. You know what I'm saying? Because we got the true light. So just based on thought, we could create planets. We could create entire universes, right? So but the Dialdabaoth, he didn't have the power to create stars, right? He didn't have that much light. He couldn't create stars, but he could create planets based on thought, right? So he created these seven planets right here. And like I said, there was gods above him, and he didn't realize because he said, "I'm a jealous God." And as we know, jealousy is not a divine attribute. So this God could not be divine, the God of this world, could not be a divine God, right? This God is the devil, basically. When I get through with this, you'll realize that this God I'm talking about is the devil, right? And even on the dollar bill, this is what people don't understand. The white man has a God. He even tells you that on his dollar bill. He tells you that on his dollar bill. In God we trust. He's talking about Ialdabaoth, right? Because see, Ialdabaoth realized that he could rule the world with these people, and he could use his evil archons, right, to do his bidding, right? But like I said, once Sophia talked him into creating a human, right? And she also went to the seven archons and told them, "Y'all should help me persuade Aldebaoth into creating a human. That way, y'all have somebody to rule over." You know what I'm saying? Because they won't have no light. But the whole time she was shitting them, right? The whole time after he created the human being, she convinced Ialdabaoth to blow in a little bit of light, which little bit of light he had. He blew a little light in there, but then she snuck in the primal seed. She snuck in the original primal seed, which is the soul. She snuck in the original primal seed and fooled him. And after Ialdabaoth realized what was happening, he said, "Shit, she tricked me." And he realized that we were higher than him because we had the original seed in us. We had the original light. So he realized he had got tricked. So he said, "Oh shit. Anything I see down there on planet Earth with some light, I'm gonna try to kill it." Or I'm gonna try to unalive it, excuse me, because it's a YouTube, so you gotta watch your language. So he said, anything I see on planet Earth down there, I'm gonna try to unalive it, right? So, like I said, that explains why all the killings that's happening to young black males and females all the unalivings happening to young black females around the country and males around the country, because the light, you understand, you got to understand why this stuff is happening. But anyway, so Ialdabaoth right here, he only had enough light to create these seven planets. He couldn't create stars, like I said, because he didn't have that much light. He wasn't the prime creator of the cosmos, right? He wasn't that. He was not that. But anyway, let me get into this, family, so we can see where I'm going with this, right? So right here from the book again, the Gnosis or Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures by William Kingsland, it says, let me get some water before I start reading this, because, mouth can get kind of dry. Okay, it says, the essence of the ancient gnosis, I repeat, is the oneness of the human soul with the universal soul. No matter by what name that principle may be called to suit the apprehension of those whom the teacher addressed, that oneness gives the individual the right to call himself a son of God. It enables his present belief to pass into absolute knowledge, gnosis, a knowledge which enables him to overcome every human disability and confers upon him the freedom of the universe. Such are the great initiates, the masters of wisdom, who today are once more making known their existence. Jesus never speaks of Jehovah, and there is not one of his references to God which may not be interpreted in a cosmic sense. Pay attention, family, because he's dropping right here. And using the term Father, he simply endeavored to bring down the conception of the one God, the God one, with whom he had realized his oneness, to the level of the intelligence of his Jewish hearers, since the Jews had been accustomed to think of God, Jehovah, as a person, and a very human one at that. But even so, the term Father has a legitimate use in cosmic religion, so long as we speak of individual souls as being derived from and dependent on the universal soul. In those systems, such as the Egyptians, in which natural forces were personified as gods, there was always a one supreme Father of gods, in the sense of being their creator, he himself being self-created. At various times and in different localities, various names were given to this one supreme God, the God one. He was identified with Nu, with Tim, or Atmu, with Ptah, with Khnemu, the god of the first cataract, and with Khepra. Thus, philosophically and or esoterically, the religion of the Egyptians, like that of also the Hindus, were monotheistic. The various gods being merely personifications of natural forces conceived of as having great intelligence behind them. Inevitably, perhaps, the ignorant masses worship these lesser gods, just as today worship and intercession is made to the Virgin and to the saints in the Roman Catholic Church. And it says, Nu is the name given to the vast mass of water which existed in the primeval times and was situated presumably in the sky. It formed a material part of the great god Tim, or Atmu, who was the creator of the universe and of gods and men. And this mass, which was believed to be of fathomless depth and of boundless extent, were the germs of all life and of all kinds of life. And for this reason, the God who was the personification of water, i.e., Nu, was called Father of the gods and the producer of the great company of the gods. Here we have precisely the same idea as that expressed in the second verse of the first chapter of Genesis, or genes of Isis, or Gnosis. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, right? That's the same thing what I just read. Nu, the given mass of water existed in the primeval time and was situated presumably in the sky. So it's basically the same thing, family. So what it's trying to say, all that came out of this. Christianity is a stolen religion. It was stolen, right? And it was carved up, and it was given to you so they could rule over you with it, because it was meant to free you. But when they carved it up and gave it back to you, now they got you, make you feeling all moralistic and bad about being born. That's not what it was for. It's supposed to free you. But certain people took it and misused it to control people. You know what I'm saying? So that's what these books is basically saying. Let me go into something else real quick, family. I got it marked right here. And it says, there are innumerable similar affirmations, and we may say, indeed, that notwithstanding the difficulty of translation and the undoubted corruption of much of the text, we have in this ancient scripture, some of which is pre-dynastic, That is to say, prehistorical. Undoubted proof that this highest summit of thought, which the human mind has reached, is no product of the later and historical developments of religion, but has always existed alongside of the more primitive beliefs, custom, and rituals. There is only one explanation of this. It is that of the existence of a hierarchy of initiates in all ages, men and women who had already achieved the full knowledge of their spiritual and divine nature and powers, not as a mere philosophical concept, but in all the knowledge of the nature of the cosmos, of cosmic law, and of supreme power over the forces of nature, which such a knowledge gives. Thus, the Egyptians had their tradition of the divine king initiates or demigods who preceded the historical dynastic period, and initiation into the Egyptian mysteries, from which the Greek mysteries were later on derived, was eagerly sought after by many of the ancient philosophers whose writings have come down to us. Moses himself is said in the Acts of the Apostles to have been instructed in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. And I do not think that it would be altogether too difficult to show that the same cosmological and anthropological ideas underlie the symbolism of both the books of Moses and the Book of the Dead. In other words, they are both derived from the same source, the supreme knowledge of the hierarchy of initiates. I have dealt further with this, however, in chapter 4. We have information of the existence of this hierarchy from many sources, and I deal with some of these in chapter 3. I take it then that to be the fundamental fact of religion, that the real immortal self in man is one with the absolute. So in the story, when Sophia hid the light into the human being, when she hid the light in us, that's the oneness with God. That's the God. The true God is on earth. Because there's a saying in the Zohar that the people on earth say God is in heaven, but the angels in heaven say God is on earth. You see what I'm saying? The God of this earth, family, is he's a he's a wrathful God, a God of brimstone, a God of fire and hatred and oppression and jealousy. He's not this all loving, caring God. He's not. And it's in the text. This ain't coming from me. This is from the text. I'm just imparting it and sharing it with y'all so y'all can go get the text and get it and read it for yourself. Because we all know Christianity. Most of us was raised up in the church. You know what I'm saying? Like me, shit, my mom had me in church every Sunday. So I know the scriptures. So when I read it now, it all comes to light. It's like clear, like the light, big old light bulb just go off in my head. You know what I'm saying? I know what time it is. So here, let me read on. It says, religion is nothing if it is not intensified life, even to that which eye have not seen, nor ear heard, nor had it entered into the heart of man to conceive. Practical religion is the absolute conquest by the power of the Spirit, the Christ in you, of St. Paul, of sin, suffering, and death here and now in this world. Over and over again, we must insist that the practical religion is conquest, not escape. It is conquest through real knowledge, gnosis. Your Christianity will not save you, or your child, or your loved one from physical harm and disease if there is ignorance of the cause of these and the lack of the power to control those causes. That was powerful, family. I'm going to read that one more time. And this is what this says on page 69. It says, it says, practical religion is the absolute conquest by the power of the Spirit, the Christ in you. Of St. Paul, of sin, suffering, and death here and now in this world. Over and over again, we must insist that practical religion is conquest, not escape. It is conquest through real knowledge, gnosis. Your Christianity will not save you, or your child, or your loved one from physical harm and disease if there's ignorance of the causes of these and a lack of the power to control those causes. Family, that was powerful. Like I always used to say, what these hands don't get done, don't get done. Ain't nothing out there. God is inside of you. It told you in the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within. You thought that was a joke? That's why you means your own universe. There's a whole universe inside you. Don't you know when your family members die, they go to live inside of you? Yeah, they go to live inside of you. There's a whole universe in there. They inside of you. You remember in the movie Ray? Um, when his mom came and talked to him After she passed, after she made the transition, she came and told him, she said, Ray, I told you, don't never become no, what's she telling him? Don't never become no cripple. But he did. He got hooked on heroin, remember? But then he beat it, and he become a big superstar. You see what I'm saying? But she came and told him, and then also in the movie, what was deep, his little brother that died and came and told him he raped all his whole life, thought it was his fault. Come to find out, his brother came and told him, yo, it ain't your fault, yo. It ain't your fault. That was a deep movie. Y'all need to go see that again if you ain't seen it in a while. And Jamie Foxx played the hell out of that part of Ray. I think Ray came through. I think Ray came through in that movie because, actors, they teach them you got to be an open vessel when you're acting. So it was easy for spirit to come in and enter. Ray came through in that movie. If you didn't see that, you need to watch it again. But anyway, it says your Christianity will not save you or your child or your loved one from physical harm and disease if there is ignorance of the cause of these and a lack of the power to control those causes. Neither will you be saved from other and more subtle evils if you have not the knowledge of their causes and the will to conquer them. We have every proof that the knowledge and power can be achieved. In the modern records, not to go back to ancient ones of the powers, both physical and psychic, of the Eastern yogis and Mahatmas, these do not achieve through belief in creeds or dogmas, but through belief in their own inherent powers. Them people over in the East do some great things and feats that are unbelievable because they believe in themselves. Y'all heard what Fantasia said? She said, if you believe, you got to believe in yourself. Anything is possible. Infinite possibilities out here, family. You can't believe in this God, not of this world. Not of this world. But anyway, let me continue on. In short, belief in the unity of man with that subtle being of which this whole universe is composed and the natural powers which are the result of an ever-increasing realization of that unity. In the first instant, yoga is control of the mind over new thought. Practitioners are taking the first steps in a more or less understanding manner towards this ancient science of mind. In the higher stages, however, mind is altogether transcended. This conquest of the world, the individual must achieve through repeated reincarnations until he becomes the initiate, the adept, the Buddha, the Christ. Listen, family, the Christ is not one person. The Christ is a race of beings. The Christ is 144,000 families. It's a body of people. It's 144 families that's going to do this thing. It ain't no one pale-faced man with no long hair. No, that's come on, yo, that's the devil. No, no. But let's continue on. Let's continue on. So I'm telling y'all about this Ialdabaoth, right? The god of this god of this world, this so-called evil god of this world, right? Um, y'all need to get these works and study them. Then you'll understand where I'm coming from. And you'll understand why this world is the way it is. Because this Ialdabaoth, he got some people now that he can put those evil archons in and he can use them. Y'all see what kind of world we live in. We see the sister that just got shot in the face the other day by that police officer. That was a ritual. Y'all didn't see that? That was a ritual. They've been doing the rituals for a long time. They've been doing the rituals and trying to put fear into people. Go check out brother Ani Asaru. He did the video Sandra Massey Decode. Sandra Massey Decoded. I think his name is Ani Asaru. Go check that video out. The brother dropped on that. So you understand why they can do these things, because they're using the system to do it. They're using the system to do it. And Ialdabaoth is behind it. That's why I'm trying to tell y'all about this Ialdabaoth. See, if you want to understand what's going on in this world today, you just understand Ialdabaoth. He's a jealous God. He's an unaliving God. He's a bloodthirsty God. Right? So you look at what's happening in the world, you'll see whose world, you'll see it. But let's continue, family. Let me see. It says, has it not been taught that only as the lower personal self is lost can the higher immortal spirit be found? It is in the wider interest of humanity as a whole that the spiritual man will first of all merge or lose his personal interest and even any thought of a personal salvation. Far earlier than Christianity, it was taught in the East that the Buddha of compassion renounced nirvana in order to work for the salvation of humanity. The cosmic aspect of religion is this: humanity as a whole is a unitary cosmic entity associated with the cosmic function of this particular globe as a unit in the solar system. That system being still a larger cosmic unit whose life history is represented by the sun, or spiritually by the solar logos. The great cycle of man's evolution on this globe is a fall and a recovery, an outgoing from spirit into matter and a return to spirit. See, family, that's what's happening. We returning to spirit. And see, these people are mad because the light is shining brighter and brighter. And remember, I told you, Aldebaran said, if I see any light down there, I'm going to try to kill it. Because Sophia, the great mother of wisdom, tricked his ass and put the true seed inside of us and made us higher than him. We ain't got no business praying and worshiping and bowing down to nobody. You got to know that you are God, like it says, John 10 and 34, Psalms 82 and 6. Is it not written in your law, ye are God's children of the Most High? That's what you got to learn to understand. But let's go on. Let's move on. Okay, let me go to, there's another piece in here I want to share with y'all before we move on. And it says, the expositors of those mysteries, so well recognized in the palmy days of Greece and Alexandria, retired into the background, knowing well that what was about to befall the Western nations was simply karma, and that it had to be allowed to run its course. But now, happily, in these 19th and 20th centuries, the mystery teachings of the ancient wisdom are emerging once more, and eager souls, reincarnations of those who have had a previous knowledge of the teachings, are once more taking up their quest where they laid it down in those far back days. Not merely so, but the teachers, the initiates, the high masters of this wisdom are once more proclaiming their existence and becoming the personal guides of those who are ready and fitted to receive those deeper secrets of man and of cosmos, which cannot be disclosed to those who have not the preliminary qualifications. So has it ever been, so is it now. Here are 3 statements of the fact. This book is indeed a veritable mystery. Let no stranger anywhere have knowledge of it. Do not speak of it to any man. Do not repeat it. Let no other eye see it. Let no other ear hear it. Let no one except thyself and him who taught it to thee. Let not the multitude know of it except thyself and thy beloved friend of thy heart. It is indeed a mystery. The dwellers in the swamps of the delta and everywhere, thou shalt know, and thou shalt not know it. This, therefore, is manifested by the mandate of the mysteries, which orders that they should not be divulged to those who are uninitiated, for as that which is divine cannot be unfolded to the multitude. This mandate forbids the attempt to elucidate it to anyone but him who is fortunately able to perceive it. So that's basically saying everybody's not going to perceive this. And it's not meant for everybody. But I know that those that meant is for are going to get it. I know that for sure, family. Those that it's meant for is going to get it. There's no doubt in my mind. And those that won't. I'm here for my fellow man. That's it. I'm here to raise up my fellow man. I want to see us all living in glory and splendor and abundance and happiness and joy. You know what I'm saying? This world we live in now, it's not fair. Everybody see it's corrupt, man. There's corruption everywhere because I'm telling you why it's corrupt. This is why I'm telling you, you got to get these texts and you'll understand why this world you live in is corrupt. Aldebaran. And it's 7 archons. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Let's move on. Okay, I'm gonna read this little quick piece right here because this is a must. This must be said. It must never be forgotten that in the Eastern philosophies there's an open meaning for the many and a hidden meaning for the few, who are thus initiated and instructed. This is emphatically so with the Vedanta and certain teachings of the Buddha. Moving about in India, Ceylon, Burma, and Japan, one is much struck with the fact that these esoteric meanings are most carefully guarded and seldom meet the observer except in the most favorable circumstances. Yet there are none to those who are able to penetrate beneath the surface. So, back in the ancient times, these teachings wasn't readily taught to everyone. People took oaths not to teach these messages, but we're in a time now, we're in a critical time. The word got to get out. People got to know because there's too much ignorance in the land. There's a lot of ignorance in the land, right? So, yeah, family, get this book. Get this book, The Gnosis, Ancient Wisdom in the Christian Scriptures by William Kingsland. And I think you can still get it. I think you can get it on Amazon for a reasonable price. But it's worth, family, it's worth every penny because you see all this tabs I got in here, and there's going to be more by the time I finish. This whole book will be filled with tabs by the time I finish. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to go to the next one because I didn't want to spend too much time in this book. I went over more time on this one than I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? But now I'm going to go in this one. I'm going to step into this one a little bit. We're going to get a little bit scholarly. We're going to get a little scholarly here today. You know what I'm saying? Because like I always tell y'all, I'm serious about my shit. So we're going to get a little scholarly today. This book I'm going to be reading from is called Gnosticism, New Light on the Ancient Tradition of Inner Knowing by Stephen A. Holler. Excellent book, fam. Excellent work. I'm going to read something from the back. This just going to give you a little insight into what, jewels that this book holds. It says, through the cracks in the universe, the light of the transcendent penetrates our vision and awakes us to possibilities long desired but not yet realized. The Greek word gnosis means knowledge. The Gnostic worldview developed alongside Judeo-Christianity 2,000 years ago. But while Christianity emphasizes faith, Gnosticism emphasizes a state of consciousness for knowing God directly, an aim which mainstream Christianity finds heretical. Stephen Holler's comprehensive overview is an unfolding historical drama filled with passion, political intrigue, martyrdom, and mystery. It also reveals Gnosticism as the indigenous mystical tradition of the West. And what we learned about in this book is the Gnostic view of the divine and the manifest world, good and evil, and the essence of the human soul. Excuse me. The Gnostic Christ as the messenger of light and the guide to sacred mysteries. Sophia, the Gnostic archetype of feminine wisdom. The scriptures, sacraments, and rituals of Gnostic religion, such as the Mandean, holding secret wisdom traced back to John the Baptist, the Manichaean, founded by the great 3rd century Persian prophet Mani, and the Cathar, the glorious and persecuted movement in medieval southern France. Gnostic literature and its influence on cultural giants such as Voltaire, Blake, Yeats, Hess, Melville, and Young. Gnosticism, West and East, that constitutes a Gnostic, and how Gnosticism can guide us into the 21st century. Stephen Holler is the preeminent exponent today of Gnosticism as a living religious practice and gives a splendid interpretation in contemporary language of the ancient Gnostic form of Christianity. This book should help make Gnosticism as serious a contender in the current spiritual marketplace as it was 2,000 years ago. Family. Book is a jewel. It's worth having in your library. But what I'm going to read to y'all in here is some really profound stuff. Really profound. Let me find it real quick because I had it. Okay, here we go. It's on page 26. And it says, let me get some water real quick, family. Give me a second. Give me a little quick second. Okay. It says, most Westerners assume that Western culture has only one creation myth. The one in the first 3 chapters of Genesis, Few seem to be aware that there is an alternative, the creation myth of the Gnostics. The myth that may strike us as a novel and startling, yet it offers views of the creation and of our lives that are well worth considering. William Blake, the Gnostic poet of the early 19th century, wrote, "Both read the Bible day and night, but you read black where I read white." Similar words might have been uttered by early Gnostics about their opponents in the ranks of Judaism and Christianity. The non-Gnostic or Orthodox view in early Christendom regarded most of the Bible, particularly Genesis, as history with a moral. Adam and Eve were historical personages whose tragic transgression resulted in the fall. And from their fall, later human beings were to learn portentous moral lessons. One consequence of this reading of Genesis was the ambivalent and worse than ambivalent status of women, who were regarded as Eve's co-conspirators in disobedience in paradise. Tertullian, one of the church fathers who despised the Gnostics, wrote thus to a group of Christian women: "You are the devil's gateway. You are she who persuaded him whom the devil did not dare attack. Do you know that you are each an Eve? The sins of God on your sex lives, on this age, the guilt necessarily lives on too." See, family, you hear that? That's a way of try to control the women. You are the devil's gateway. You are she who persuaded him who the devil did not dare attack. Do you know that you are each an Eve? The sins of God on your sex lives, and on this age, the guilt necessarily lives on too. You know what I'm saying? They got women out here, you know what I'm saying, feeling guilty about sex, and they got to have married and be married to have children, all this nonsense. You feel me? Um, it goes on to say, the Gnostic Christians, whose legacy of sacred literature we find in the splendid Nag Hammadi library, read Genesis not as history with a moral, but as a myth with a meaning. You hear that? It said, read Genesis not as history with a moral, but as a myth with a meaning. They regarded Adam and Eve not as historical figures, but as representative of two interpsychic principles present within every human being. That's powerful right there, family. That's a powerful key to have when you read and studying that Bible, because you can't throw the Bible away. It's been carved up, yeah, it's been carved up and used as a tool, but we got the real stuff now. We got the real deal, Holyfield now. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you get this one. Especially if you get this one right here, the Now Comedy Library by James Robinson. This is what they dug up in 1945. And then they didn't get it translated until, I think the first time it got translated was in 55, and then it finally got translated by Bentley Leighton in 1977. This was translated and said he translated in 77. He did an excellent job, by the way. So if y'all don't have this, get this. So I'm giving y'all the keys to understand what's happening in this world. You know what I'm saying? And there's other ways to find this out. This is just one way. So I'm just saying this ain't the only way. This is just one way. I just want to make that clear. You know what I'm saying? There's many ways that this information is being expressed, but this is one way it's being expressed to let us know who we are, where we came from, and why we dealing with what we dealing with. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, y'all need to get these books because they're very important to have. Very important to have in your library. But anyway, it says the Gnostic Christians, whose legacy of sacred literature we find in the splendid Nag Hammadi library, read Genesis not as history with a moral, but as a myth with a meaning. They regarded Adam and Eve not as historical figures, but as representative of two intrapsychic principles present within every human being. Adam was the dramatic embodiment of psyche or soul, the mind emotion complex where thinking and feeling originate. Eve stood for pneuma or spirit, representing the higher transcendental consciousness. There are two biblical accounts regarding the creation of the first woman. One tells us that Eve was created out of Adam's rib, Genesis 2 and 21. The other, that God created the first human pair, male and female, in his own image. Remember where he says male and female, he created them, right? So God created the first human pair, male and female, in his own image. The second account suggests that the creator God himself has a dyadic nature, combining male and female characteristics. The Gnostic generally endorsed this version and developed various interpretations of it. This version accords equality to the woman, while the Adam's Rib version makes her subordinate to the man. For the ancient Gnostics, the conventional image of Eve was not credible. That image presented her as the one who was led astray by the evil serpent and who, with her feminine seductive charm, persuaded Adam to disobey God. In their view, Eve was not a gullible dunce turned persuasive temptress. Rather, she was a wise woman, a true daughter of Sophia, the celestial wisdom. In this capacity, she was the one who awakened the sleeping Adam. Thus, in the Apocryphon of John, Eve says, and this is from the Apocryphon of John, which you can read in the Nag Hammadi library, or you can also read it, pieces of it in here, but it's in its entirety in there. So that book, the Nag Hammadi, is a must-have. You know what I'm saying? If you want to understand this stuff. But this is what she said. Eve says, I entered into the midst of the dungeon, which is the prison of the body. And I spoke thus. He who hears, let him arise from the deep sleep. And then he, Adam, wept and shed tears. He spoke, asking, who is it that calls my name? And whence has this hope come into me, why I am in the chains of this prison? And I spoke thus, I am the foreknowledge of pure light. I am the thought of the undefiled spirit. Arise and remember, and follow your root, which is I, and beware of the deep sleep. Oh my goodness. That's what they putting on us now, family, the deep sleep. The deep sleep. Man, they've been casting spells on us ever since the inception of America. And that's why this knowledge was hidden. You had to take an oath when you got this knowledge, not to share it with certain people because they didn't want it to get into the wrong hands. As we see, we look at the world today, the knowledge has gotten into the wrong hands. And people are abusing their power, misusing the knowledge and abusing their power. Like we seen the other day when the policeman unalived the sister, Sandra Massey, on television. That was a ritual. Like I said again, family, if you haven't seen it, go watch Brother Anya Saru's breakdown of the ritual. It's called Sandra Massey's Decoded. Check it out. Straight ritual. But see, that's what Aldabaoth wants. He wants people to get control of the world that he can use like that to commit unaliving and deleting people and stuff like that. That's what he wants. That's his nature. Remember, he's a jealous God. He's arrogant. If you look around the world, who's jealous? Who's arrogant? You can't even say certain things on certain platforms. He's a bully. Aldabaoth was a bully. So if you look at the God Aldabaoth, if you look at him, you'll see, look at this government. Look at Aldabaoth and look at this government. You'll see it. You know what I'm saying? You'll see it. But I'm going to read this one more time because this was deep. This is Eve talking. She said, I entered into the midst of the dungeon, which is the prison of the body. And I spoke thus, he who hears, let him arise from the deep sleep. And then he, Adam, wept and shed tears. He spoke, asking, who is it that calls my name? And whence has this hope come into me? Why I'm in the chains of this prison. And I spoke thus, I am the foreknowledge of pure light. I am the thought of the undefiled spirit. Arise and remember, and follow your route, which is I, and beware of the deep sleep. Whoa, whoa, family, that was deep. That's on page 27 in this book. And this book got so many jewels, fam. I mean, I can't even do this justice on this video or this camera. Only you can do it justice, like I always say, by going to get it, study it yourself. But this book is, I don't know what, 300 pages. 300, this, as you can see, all my books got tabs because, baby, I be in them. I be researching, studying. I don't play because I'm serious about my shit. You see what I'm saying? I don't call me the serious alchemist for nothing because I'm serious about my shit. But anyway, let me go into this little piece. Um, Let me see. Let me find this little piece I want to share with y'all, which is pretty profound, and it speaks to, you know, Alderbroff and what he is and what he is about. Um, And let's see, it's already on. Yeah. Okay, I'm right here. I'm gonna read this and I'm going to this next book, family. Um, it says the Gnostic sayings of Jesus also shed light on his rather unusual method of teaching. Unlike most teachers, he appears to impart more than ideas, to do more than exhort along conventional moral and religious lines. He addresses his teachings not to the thinking minds and the emotions of people as much as to their incipient intuitive gnosis. His words are not so much intended to inform as to stimulate latent creative and imaginative faculties. The Jesus who emerges in these sayings is a Jesus quite different from the traditional meek and mild man of sorrow. This Jesus uses metaphor and myth, cryptic, mystical adages, and explicitly Gnostic parables to induce extraordinary states of consciousness in his followers. We don't know. They basically saying we don't know who this long haired dude, white haired, long haired dude is with the blue eyes talking about love, this, love, and light and all this. Because light, that ain't what it is. Because Jesus said, I come with a sword. I came to separate mothers and fathers. You know what I'm saying? Um, and that's another thing in that in the non-comedy library, it's got all Jesus' original sayings in there. You can go in that book and you can get all his original sayings that he said and that didn't make it into the Bible. It never made it in there. You know why they didn't make it in there? Because they made it in there, they couldn't control you. They couldn't control you if he made it in there. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, let me read this for y'all real quick, family. Give me some water real quick. And it says the Gnostic sayings of Jesus also shed light on his rather unusual method of teaching. Unlike most teachers, he appears to impart more than ideas, to more than exhort along conventional moral and religious lines. He addresses his teachings not to the thinking minds and the emotions of people as much as to their incipient intuitive gnosis. His words are not so much intended to inform as to stimulate latent creative and imaginative faculties. The Jesus who emerges in these sayings is a Jesus quite different from the traditional meek and mild man of sorrows. Just Jesus uses metaphors and myths, cryptic, mystical adages, and explicitly Gnostic parables to induce extraordinary states of consciousness in his followers. A number of sayings in the gospel, according to Thomas, show Jesus as a teacher intent upon stimulating gnosis in his followers. Not he gave his life for his followers. Can nobody get a life for you, family? Who can die? You tell me, excuse me, you tell me one person that can die for you. Really, I'm serious. I ain't trying to joke. You know what I'm saying? You just show me one person that can die. Nobody can die for you, family. So it says, a number of sayings in the Gospels, according to Thomas, show Jesus as a teacher intent upon stimulating gnosis in his followers. He rebukes the disciples for trying to assess his role in person in terms of past prophecies. His disciples said to him, 24 prophets spoke in Israel, and they all spoke about thee. He said to them, you have dismissed the living one who is before you, and you have spoken about the dead, saying, and it says, he seems to be saying, don't evaluate me in terms of the past. Don't connect me with prophecy, scripture, and expectation. See me with your gnosis, and you will understand in the same source we find. Look upon the living one as long as you live, lest you die and seek him and be unable to see. And they said to him, tell us who thou art so we may believe in thee. He said, you test the face of the sky and of the earth, but him who is before your face you have not known, and you do not know how to test this moment. All of these statements appeal to an immediate intuitive perception of an existential nature and discard conceptual intellectual explanations. The Gnostic scriptures reveal that at least in some instances, Jesus actually induced the experience of gnosis in his followers. In saying of the gospel according to Thomas, Jesus asked his disciples to tell him who he resembles. Peter likens his master to a righteous angel. Matthew likens him to a wise philosopher. Only Thomas refuses to make any comparisons and says that his mouth cannot declare in any way what his master is like. Jesus then says to Thomas, I am not thy master any longer because thou hast drunk. Thou hast become inebriated by the bubbling spring which I have measured out. Jesus then takes Thomas aside and whispers three words into his ear. Afterwards, the other apostles try to learn from Thomas what the three words are. Thomas refuses to tell them, saying, "If I tell you one of the words which he said to me, you will take up stones and throw them at me, and fire will come from the stones and burn you up." Woo! That's powerful, family. And there's some deep meaning in that. There's some really, really deep meaning in that. So now I'm gonna go into this one, to the allure of Gnosticism. Um, I know this one's still in print. I know for sure this is still in print. I know for sure you can go get this one, family. This book is excellent too. And let me just read what it says in the back real quick. It said Gnosticism for Gnosis is for more than an ancient religious movement with Christian, Jewish, and pagan followers. It is a living presence today. In many religions, and also completely outside formal religion, this book explores ancient and modern Gnosticism and their relations with each other. I can just tell y'all right now, this book is a must-have if you want to understand this stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's really truly a must-have, and I'm just thankful that I was able to get this stuff and read it. You know, and it's just really really a blessing to know and read this stuff, because that's how you save yourself, through knowledge. You ain't gonna save yourself just by claiming I'm saved, by going around I'm saved and sanctified. That's not how it works. You have to actually put in some work to save yourself. You know what I'm saying? You can't just save yourself by professing things with your lips. I mean, if that was the case, you know what I'm saying, you got to save yourself with knowledge, by knowing, by the gnosis. The gnosis can help lead you to free yourself. You feel me? So, yeah, this book right here, family, I had a piece in here I want to read and share with y'all. Um, and this is called Young's Fascination with Gnosticism. And this was written by Robert A. Siegel. Um, and Young was a psychiatrist who did studied Gnosticism and got all his methods from studying Gnosticism, for healing and stuff, because he is a famous psychiatrist. In his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Carl Gustav Jung describes his search for objective evidence of the collective unconscious, evidence beyond his own experience of it. And he goes on to say, as my life entered its second half, I was already embarked on the confrontation with the contents of the unconscious. First, I had to find evidence for the historical prefiguration of my inner experiences. That is to say, I had to ask myself, where have my particular premises already occurred in history? If I had not succeeded in finding such evidence, I would never have been able to substantiate my ideas. Jung found that evidence in two sources, alchemy and Gnosticism. Interpreted psychologically, both served as a hoary forerunners of analytical psychology and therefore as evidence of its objectivity. And Jung goes on to say, the experiences of the alchemists were, in a sense, my experiences, and their world was my world. This was, of course, a momentous discovery. I had stumbled upon the historical counterpart of my psychology of the unconscious. The possibility of a comparison with alchemy and the uninterrupted intellectual chain back to Gnosticism gave substance to my psychology. So he was a psychologist, excuse me, I said psychiatrist, but he was a great psychologist. But he was really good at what he does. But he got all his methods he learned from studying Gnosticism. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah. Um, so Young, put a lot of work and study into Gnosticism and used it, like I said, to heal his patients. And I'm gonna read this other part, and this is called the ego as Ialdabaoth. Very interesting. You know what I'm saying? The ego as Ialdabaoth. Let me get some water real quick, family. Ah, okay. The ego as Ialdabaoth. What this Gnostic test exposes, and what Jung's analytical psychology also affirms, is the illusory nature of our usual perceptions regarding ego autonomy, independence, and control. This is the ego's characteristic illusion. It lives in a fog of self deception about its independence and about its lack of origin or need of anything outside of itself. The text points out the ego's fierce resistance to insight into its deeper dependencies upon extra ego structures. Like Jung, this text diagnoses the malaise, a nightmare of this type of ego existence. In this delusional state, the ego suffers massive anxiety and becomes aggressive. It lives in envy and despair. This text recommends as treatment for this malaise. Much like Jung, the experience of a symbol that will connect ego consciousness to the self. At bottom, every neurosis is a religious problem. Did y'all hear that, family? At bottom, every neurosis is a religious problem. Jung was fond of saying, and the solution for a religious problem is an experience of the pluralistic wholeness of one's own being and is solitary with being itself. In contrast to the messenger or savior, the true symbol of self by Aldebaoth is an image of the unconscious factor, an archon or archetype that creates and backs up the deluded ego's lust for radical independence, control, separateness, and supremacy. You heard that, right? Supremacy. Now we have, what are we living under, family? White supremacy. That's your Aldebaoth thing. There ain't nobody supreme over nobody. We might be different. I'll be the first to say it. We might be different, but ain't nobody supreme. Ain't nobody more supreme than the other person. You know what I'm saying? We may be different. But see, like it says, in contrast to the messenger or savior, that true symbol of the self, Aldebaoth is an image of the unconscious factor, an archon or archetype that creates and backs up the deluded ego's lust for radical independence, control, separateness, and supremacy. That's exactly the kind of government we live under, family. You know who, so you know, I'm telling you, the God of this world is the devil. That's what basically what this video is saying. And these texts back it up. This is my proof. These are my receipts. I got many receipts. These are my receipts saying the God of this world is the devil. I got receipts. Secret Books of the Egyptian Gnostics by Jean Duress. She goes into the Gnostic material as well. This is facts. This ain't nothing I'm making up, family. These are just facts. This is scholarship. You see the picture on the front? They dug this up in Egypt. These are the real texts. They stole Christianity. It ain't theirs. It didn't belong to them. And they switch it up so they can control you. So y'all get these texts, it'll lead you to some very profound truths, family. Some very, 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 very profound truths. So you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna end this video with that one right there, family. I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you like a reading from me, I'm gonna leave my email in the description box down below. Hit me up. I do some fire readings. Until the next time, peace.